on the page 10 of the handout, you can see the resources that we either own outright or in partnership with other utilities. One of the newer assets that we have is the Elmo Generating Station, a state-of-the-art coal plant just south of Milwaukee that we own in partnership with WEPCO and MG&E. We took a tour of that facility. It came online in 2010 and 2011. It is state-of-the-art technology. It's one of the cleanest, most efficient coal-fired power plants in the country. We are, despite the EPA rules that we're dealing with on greenhouse gas emissions, we believe that will be a plant that will provide services for 40 to 50 years to come. We also have a number of long-term power supply contracts. A contract that we entered into in 2011. We entered into a long-term agreement that runs until 2033 to buy 164 megawatts of capacity out of the Point Beach nuclear plant. And that did a lot for us as far as reducing our overall emissions and preparing for what we knew was coming with respect to greenhouse gas regulations at the national level. So as a utility, we now have the lowest emissions of any utility in the state of Wisconsin. So we have positioned ourselves in preparation for what we knew was coming with increased regulation on greenhouse gas emissions. Last year, the EPA released the draft rules. Comments were due in December. They received over 2 million distinct comments on those rules. We expect the final rules to be done June of this year, and then implementation of the state plan starting. The states have to file their plans in 2016, and then we'll start seeing implementation issues probably in 2017, 18, and 19. But we believe we're very well positioned. We do believe the new rules will probably add some additional cost to our service, but overall it will add less to us than any other of the utilities in the state or region. Right now we have about 13% of our power supply comes from renewable resources, and we are looking at a couple other options for renewables. We are doing a couple of pilots on a community solar project where we would put in a utility scale solar system at a member community, and then they would provide or offer ownership or lease arrangements to customers that want to buy a solar panel. So the customer gets the benefit of a larger system, so you have economies of scale. They don't have to put it on their property, so there's probably less than 30% of the given housing stock in the community that's a good fit for solar. So this allows more people to participate. We're looking at doing the 2 pilots this year, and then depending on how those work out, we're going to be looking at expanding that program so that other communities would be able to offer solar directly to customers through a community solar effort. And so we're looking forward to having that done and breaking ground early this spring and having them online this year. As I said, the nuclear contract, we now have 23% of our power supply coming from nuclear energy. And this allowed us, as I said, to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions substantially. Really, for our members, what they really want to know is what's the rate. How are you doing on your rates? Over the last 4 years and for the year 2015, for that 5-year period, our rates will have increased about a little bit less than 10% over that 5-year period, about 2% per year. The challenges that we faced over that 5-year period, utilities typically, we have inflationary adjustments in most of our wholesale power supply contracts that we have, where they might escalate 1 or 2%. And so we've seen that pressure. Also, with the very low to no growth that we've had, utilities typically, if you can have 1 to 2 to 3% growth, you can absorb those cost increases and keep your rates relatively flat. Since we've had almost no growth during that 5-year period, it's put some pressure on our rates, and so we've seen those slowly slide up. But again, we've kept rates at or below the cost of inflation. We were also, during that 5-year period, where we were able to repay money out of a rates. We have a rate stabilization fund. Basically, it's a rainy day fund. And we used some of those funds to help mitigate the rate impact that we would have otherwise seen when we entered into that Point Beach nuclear contract. Long term, that contract is going to save us about $70 million. But the first 3 or 4 years of that contract actually meant that we had more power supply than we actually needed, and so we were paying a little bit more in total costs. In order to help reduce that to our members, we took money out of that rainy day fund and helped make sure that our rates didn't go up too much during that period of time. We've now since repaid that. We've got the last piece to repay in 2015. So we've kept our rates at about 2%. At the same time, we've been able to pay into the rainy day fund. We've been able to continue to make investments in transmission. I heard your discussion earlier tonight about a transmission line for ATC. We have over $100 million invested in ATC, so we are a very active owner of that organization. Being an owner of ATC helps reduce our transmission costs because we're basically hedging our costs of transmission by having an ownership interest in the company. So that is something that we've looked at and been actively participating in from the very beginning. We do see some challenges coming in 2016. Right now we're projecting that our rates could go up anywhere from 4 to 5% from 2015 to 2016. A couple things are driving that. We have been working on doing an environmental upgrade on a coal plant that we own in Minnesota called Roswell. It's one of the first assets that WPPI bought into. It's a very cost-effective, matter of fact, it's our lowest base load resource that we have. But in order to continue to operate that plant under new mercury emission rules that go into effect in 2016, we needed to do some environmental upgrades. And we're doing that in partnership again with Minnesota Power. But the debt service will hit our rates in 2016. That'll add about 1 to 2% to our total power supply bill. We also have some very favorable coal delivery contracts that expire at the end of this year. We've already been told by the railroad that we've negotiated with that we can anticipate that cost will increase by 30 to 40%. So that additional cost will show up in our bills in 2016. So we're, as I said, predicting 4 to 5% increase in 2016. 3% of that is attributed to continuing to operate Boswell as a baseload resource for our members.